I had a secret crush on Jack Sullivan for 7 years. In my previous life, I saved him during his darkest hour. I married him and was willing to be a devoted wife. I let him run my company, allowing him to bask in the limelight. In the end, he stole my money and cheated on me with his soulmate. Later, his enemies kidnapped both me and his soulmate. I thought 5 years of living together would soften his heart. But he chose to save his soulmate without hesitation, leaving me to be assaulted and killed by the kidnappers. In this new life, I've returned to the year when Jack Sullivan hit rock bottom. My car was parked at the end of the alley, just in time to witness Jack Sullivan being chased by several men in black wielding knives. It was exactly the same as in my previous life. I suppressed the complex emotions surging within me. "Uncle Tom, drive," I said. Uncle Tom cleared his throat, hesitating. Mr. Sullivan is up ahead. It looks like someone's trying to kill him." I glanced ahead. Jack Sullivan was indeed being chased and had collapsed in front of my car door, covered in wounds. He desperately knocked on the car door, begging me to help him. The door opened. I looked down at him from above. My mind flashed back to my previous life, when I had saved him without hesitation and married him, caring for him devotedly for 5 years. I had thought true love could be reciprocated. But in the end, I met a tragic death. Coming back to my senses, looking at him now, I still couldn't help but feel a pang in my heart. His handsome face, even covered in blood, couldn't hide his good looks. He crawled to my feet, looking up at me with pleading eyes. Weakly, he said, "Mia, please help me. I'll do anything." In my previous life, he had begged me just as pitifully. I had taken him in without a second thought. I fed and cared for him, paid ransom to save his brother, and protected him for 5 years. Thinking it over, I slowly replied, "All right. I would save him, but I couldn't let him dirty my car." I kicked him away. I ordered my bodyguards to protect him. "Uncle Tom, let's go," I said. "Miss, isn't Mr. Sullivan the man you've liked for a long time?" Uncle Tom asked. I snorted. "Not anymore. In my previous life, when I saved him, I didn't expect anything in return. I only hoped he could like me, even just a little." Unfortunately, it didn't end well. Back at the mansion, I saw Jack Sullivan curled up in a corner, shivering. He crawled towards me like a dog. I brushed off my pants where he had touched them. Looking at him with disgust, I said, "Jack Sullivan, since you like being a dog so much, why don't you stay by my side as one?" Today was the first time Jack asked me for time off. "Mia, I have something to do today. I won't be able to have dinner with you," he said calmly over the phone, without any hint of emotion. "What is it?" I asked. "Mia, I may be your husband in name, but I'm still a person. Can't I have my own personal space?" "You don't deserve it," I replied coldly. "If you don't listen, I can send you back to those people." He immediately deflated on the other end of the line. In this life, I still saved him, but I had no expectations. I only kept him by my side to torment him. He sighed and answered, "I'm going to see my mother." "Is that so? You'd better not be lying to me." When I saved him and brought him back, he had begged me like a puppy. "I'll do anything you want," he had said. An idea struck me, and I raised an eyebrow with a smile. "Marry me, so my family stops nagging me." He agreed. I paid the ransom to save his brother. And at the same time, I bought him for myself. To the outside world, I claimed he was my husband. In private, he was just a dog by my bedside. His enemies still wouldn't let him go, so he had to rely on me to stay alive. This time, I still bound him to me with a contract. The agreement stated that we would each take what we needed, and after 5 years when the danger had passed, I would set him free. For these 5 years, he never left my side for a moment. Whether as a husband or a bedmate, he was impeccable. At dinner time, Jack wasn't there. The housekeeper had prepared my favorite dishes. I picked up my fork but had no appetite. "Miss, this is the cake Mr. Sullivan asked me to give you before he left." "He waited in line for hours to buy it," Mrs. Liu said, bringing over a slice of cake. It was my favorite flavor, very hard to get. I took a bite with my fork, then threw it straight into the trash. Suddenly, I felt a bit lost. Today was my birthday. Thinking back to my previous life, it was just as lonely a scene. That day, he had gone to see his soulmate, Sophia Williams. As I was lost in thought, my phone suddenly rang. "Hello," I answered. On the other end was an arrogant female voice. "Miss Coleman, thank you for taking care of my Jack these past 5 years." I frowned deeply. "Who are you?" "Never mind who I am. Jack loves me." Before I could finish, she hung up. I collapsed onto the sofa, my mind replaying the past from my previous life. Jack had been with me for 5 years, pretending to be devoted to me on the surface, but behind my back, he had long been involved with Sophia Williams. In my past life, I had spent 5 years trying to make him love me, but failed. This time, I wouldn't be so foolish. If I couldn't be happy, no one else would be either. I was the most notorious socialite in South River, dissolute, unrepentant. I had been with countless men, living a life of luxury and pleasure. But they were all just passing clouds. Jack Sullivan was the only one I truly loved. He used to be a young master from a family of equal status to mine, but unfortunate twists of fate had brought him to rock bottom. I dialed Jack's number. "Where are you?" I asked. His voice sounded tired. "I'm busy. Are you with another woman?" I asked, my voice trembling. Mia, don't overthink it. I suddenly became angry, raising my voice, which startled him. I'm asking you, are you with another woman or not? Jack Sullivan. He sighed and spoke in a tone I had never heard before. Mia Coleman, I thought we only had a contractual relationship. My private life is none of your business. I was both furious and hurt, at a loss for words. You said it yourself, 5 years was the limit. Mia Coleman, shouldn't we follow the rules of the game? In this life, I had treated men's hearts as worthless. I thought I could play with men as I pleased. But once again, I was slapped in the face by reality. I lowered my voice, adding somewhat pitifully, today is my birthday. Could you? Before I could finish, he hung up. Even in this new life, Jack Sullivan was still just as cruel. In my previous life, I had investigated Sophia Williams. She was my high school classmate, and we were very close back then. She was the only one who knew about my secret crush on Jack Sullivan. Later, she went abroad to study, and we lost touch. I never imagined she would turn out to be Jack's soulmate. In this life, as soon as the 5-year term was up, Jack stopped pretending with me. He moved out of my mansion overnight, throwing away the ring I had given him. The trash can in his room was filled with gifts I had once given him. Even during our last intimate moment, I was the one who initiated everything. The last thing he said to me was, "Don't make things difficult for her." Those 5 simple words set me on edge. "Are you really that eager to leave me?" I asked. He turned his back to me, his voice low and hoarse. Mia Coleman, we were never meant to be together. For many days after he left, I couldn't sleep. The night was bitterly cold in the early hours. I stubbornly drove out of the mansion. Mrs. Liu heard the commotion and tried to stop me. "Miss, should I call the driver? It's too late for you to drive alone." "Where are you going?" I didn't know what to say. I cleared my throat. After a moment of silence, I said, "Mrs. Liu, it's fine. I have something to do." Mrs. Liu couldn't persuade me, so she called the driver to follow behind me. At 5:30 a.m., I arrived at Jack's apartment. I knocked on the door, but there was no response for a long time. I thought he must be sound asleep and was about to leave to find a place to wait. Suddenly, the door opened. "Mia?" Jack opened the door, looking at me in disbelief, his eyes still heavy with sleep. As if on cue, a figure appeared behind him. Sophia Williams, wearing a sexy nightgown, had one hand on Jack's arm. "Jack, who is it?" she asked, turning to look at me with a meaningful gaze. "Long time no see, I'm Mia Coleman," I introduced myself. After my introduction, all 3 of us stood there in awkward silence. "You investigated me?" Jack finally spoke, his tone full of impatience and accusation. I had thought Jack would have a lot to say to me, but his first words were an irritated question. My heart sank. Looking into his eyes, I asked slowly and deliberately, "I just want to ask you one thing. During these 5 years, did you ever love me?" Sophia's expression changed. She clung to Jack's arm affectionately, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Miss Coleman, Jack has told me everything. You did save his life, and he's repaid that debt over the years. Now that the 5 years are up, shouldn't you let him go? Besides, it was just a contractual relationship. Miss Coleman, don't tell me you actually thought it was love." "Shut up. I wasn't asking you." I raised my voice, startling Sophia. "Jack, look at her. What kind of person is she? Bullying me just because she's rich," Sophia said, burying herself in Jack's arms pitifully. "Mia, no, Miss Coleman," Jack said. "The 5-year term is up. We should go to the registry office to finalize the divorce soon." Without needing to ask further, Jack had made his stance clear. "Fine. Don't regret it," I said, leaving in a huff. Behind me, I could hear Sophia's mocking laughter. "Jack, after all these years, you still have such charm. Looks like I'll have to keep a close eye on you from now on." I couldn't hear Jack's response as I walked away. I returned home in a daze.